Hello, fourth graders. Welcome back. My name is Mrs. Lawson, and I'm so excited that you're here today because we have officially reached our last lesson in Unit 1. So give yourselves a pat on the back because you did it. Your hard work is paid off, and today we just are spending the day together comparing these last 3 stories that we read. So let's take a look back. Skeletons Inside and Out, if you remember, we went through and we learned about the different animals and how we were the same and how we were different. And then we looked at movers and shapers, and we learned about our own bodies and how it all worked together. Then we learned about King of the Parking Lot, and we looked at skeletons in a little different way in that story. So which one was your favorite? Why? Yeah, I know for me, it's so hard to choose. So, for our reading intention today, we are learning to make those connections. And I like to do this, make connections between different texts on the same topic. We know we are successful today when we can find those connections between word choice that each author uses. Then we will refer back to the text for evidence, and we're going to compare author's purpose. So for word choice, when authors present information on a topic, they often use formal language to make sure that the ideas are understood. Informal language might be used to tell a related, interesting story. So we'll kind of look and dive into these stories and see if we can tell the difference between the two. First off, we're going to hop into these two texts. We're going to look at movers and shapers, and we're going to look at skeletons inside and out, and we're going to answer this question first. How is the language in these two texts the same, and how is it different? And then, why did the author make these choices? So let's go ahead and look. Clicked way too many times. How joints move. Joints move in many different ways. Some joints work like a hinge. Bend your knee to see this in action. Others, such as the shoulder, let you move in many directions. Ball and socket. Your hip and shoulder are examples of ball and socket joint. One bone rotates just like a ball that is inside a cup-like socket formed by another bone. Ball and socket joints are the most movable of all joints. Hinges and pivots. The knee, elbow, and fingers and toes contain hinge joints. So just by reading most of that page, we can kind of get the feel. Do we think that we are learning information presented to us, or are we learning about a story? So this is more formal language because they're trying to get us to understand the different joints that they're teaching us about. Now let's look at this one, twisting and bending. The bones in your body are connected by joints. Joints allow your skeleton to bend, twist, and turn. Some joints, like the ones in your knees and elbows, allow your bones to move forward and backward. These joints are called hinge joints. Other joints can move around in a circle. These are called ball and socket joints. There's a ball and socket joint between the first and second vertebrae in your neck. This is why you can twist your head in different directions. So I want you to pause here and think, is this also formal or might it be informal? Great job, fourth graders. You have found out that these are both formal language because they are using these words to define terms about joints so that we can understand how they work. And usually when there's a lot of scientific words, that is a big key, especially with this bold word right here. That tells me that I'm got a lot of information. Now we're going to hop over to King of the Parking Lot and see, oh my gosh, I didn't answer all those questions. So it says, why do you think the author made this choice? What do you guys think? Right, because they want us to understand what they're trying to explain. And then have you ever read language similar to these? Yeah, if you've ever been on Newsella, I totally think articles on there make me think of formal language. What else? Yeah, scientific articles, anything where you're learning about something online. I totally agree. Good job, fourth graders. Now that we've answered the full question, thank you for reminding me, we're going to hop over to King of the Parking Lot. So it's kind of the same question. How is the language similar to or different from the other texts? Don't let me forget the other questions once we get there. What they found. For 4 days, archaeologists dug 2 long trenches under the surface of the parking lot. Immediately, they found walls and floors of a building that may have once belonged to a monastery, a place where monks lived and prayed. This was exciting, since it was said that when Richard III died in battle, monks took his body away on a horse. Philippa and her team grew more excited. Their next plan was to find the church inside of the friary, and after that, the choir within the church. If they could find the choir, they would look underneath it, where sources said the remains of the missing king might lay if he were still buried. After only 4 days, one of the archaeologists found something else buried under the choir in an area called the walking place. Many years ago, it was tradition for important people to be buried under floor areas where many people walked as a sign of respect. So, what do you think? Is this formal or informal? Yeah, instead of it being science-based, this is actually informal language because the author's telling us a story. They're telling us about somebody trying to solve a mystery. So, the purpose behind the story is different. Now, I kind of already answered this. Why did the author make this choice? I think they're just trying to make this story as interesting as it can be. So they want us to be engaged. Where have we read language kind of like this or similar? Yeah, I read blogs. I don't know if you've read anything like that where people tell stories online. That kind of is what reminds me. It could be like a magazine if you read those. Different things like that remind me of this. Okay, my thing's kind of in the way. How could these diagrams help us write a scientific report about the remains of King Richard III? So first, we're looking at these diagrams of a skull. We got one right here. We got multiple of them. It looks like this is the one that gives us the most information. It tells us the parts. So let's go ahead and look. It says if bones could speak. So it says next was the skull. There was much damage to it. A large hole in the back clearly had clean cuts around the edges, suggesting that the man had been hit in the head with a very sharp object. They found 8 blows to the head, including a small rectangular hole, it's right here, in the cheek caused by a dagger. Since Richard III died in battle, this would make sense. So we're reading it as a story right now, but if we wanted to change this into a scientific report, we might go look back at this and say, well, where is it that he had the stab mark? Where on this skull? It was about right here. So what would that be called? It's the zygomatic bone. So that tells us, we would say, King Richard III was stabbed by a dagger in the zygomatic bone. And maybe people don't know where that is. So we could describe that it's above the mandible, because this is the mandible, and it is the cheekbone. We could even say that just to help people out. And it's kind of below the eye socket, because the eye socket is right here. So that's the way that this diagram could help us, just to give us more information and be able to explain it in more detail. Now, author's purpose. Why did the author of King of the Parking Lot not provide the specific names of the bones or the way bones function during movements as described in Skeletons Inside and Out and Movers and Shapers? So this makes me think, Why did they write King of the Parking Lot? Was it to teach us about the skeleton? No. So, what do you think? Why did they write King of the Parking Lot? Right. They wrote King of the Parking Lot to show us how a skeleton can be used as evidence to solve a mystery. It's more of a story. So, that's kind of why they don't describe to us the different parts of the bone or their roles, because that's not the purpose in the story. The purpose is that the skeleton is proof, or it's the reason why it could be King Richard III. I almost went off on a whole tangent you guys don't want to know about. So that answers the question. Now, reading response. Cartilage is found in skeletons of humans and some fish. What benefits does cartilage give to each species? So we've got these two pages from Movers and Shapers that focus on cartilage in humans. And then we have this page from Skeletons Inside and Out that focuses on fish. So your job is to figure out, what does cartilage do in each of those species? You guys got this. Congratulations on making it through your first unit, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, fourth graders.